Well, it took a lot to pull me from my hole, but the 1619 Project succeeded. And when the project's author received the Pulitzer Prize, I knew it was time to discuss this. If I can sum up the 1619 Project in 90 seconds or less, it's a journalistic project created and championed by New York Times journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones, and its purpose, it seems, is to reframe American history to recognize 1619 as the founding of America, which was the year the first American slaves came to the Jamestown settlement in what would become the United States. Now, Nicole Hannah-Jones is, as I said earlier, a journalist for the New York Times and several other publications, and the most charitable description I can give her is that she is an activistic journalist who covers mostly social topics regarding race relations in the United States, specifically Black Americans and how they continue to suffer from the legacy of slavery. But my personal description of Hannah-Jones is that of a culture warrior and a Black ethno-nationalist. Her essay, the opening essay, the synthesizing essay of the project, infers 1619 is the founding of America, despite actually being 1776, and in spite of the fact that Jamestown existed in 1607. She claimed that the War for Independence initiated on the basis that the founders were attempting to protect their slaveholding interests, which they did not. And she made this basis on the claim that Britain struggled with its role in the slave trade. But this is so academically dishonest. It's incredible. Because, yeah, Britain did struggle with its role in slavery, but so did the Founding Fathers. In fact, there's no evidence Britain would have ended slavery in the empire after the war, as they didn't abolish the slave trade until 1807, and that was just 1 year before America abolished slave importation. And by the way, Britain didn't abolish slavery in the empire until 1833. Okay, that's a right 31 and 56 years respectively. I can only guess that this interpretation was made from watching The Patriot.
By standing order of His Majesty King George, all slaves of the American colonies who fight for the crown will be granted their freedom with our victory.
Sir, we're not slaves. We work this land. Freedmen.
Oh, then you're freed men who will have the opportunity and the privilege of fighting in the King's army, aren't you?
But I think she forgot about this part.
It says, take notice. By order of General George Washington and the Continental Congress, all bound slaves who give minimum 1 year service in the Continental Army will be granted freedom and be paid a bounty of 5 shillings for each month of service. Did you hear that? First they're gonna free them, and then they're gonna pay them.
Only another 6 months.
But that's neither here nor there. Now, I want to take a second to quickly discuss historical revisionism, because that is precisely what the 1619 Project is. You'll hear the term revisionism thrown around, usually in a negative context, as revisionists seeking a result will cherry-pick historical data points to create a simplified version of their interpretation of history, lacking context or any speck of complexity. Historical revisionism is when new discoveries are made regarding an historical topic that change the interpretation and the context of our understanding of that topic. We might find documents about a chaste minister who actually had a mistress and a child, unbeknownst to us for decades or centuries, or archaeologists may excavate Roman coins in a remote island in the South Pacific we never thought the Romans discovered. My point is, historical revisionism isn't a bad thing when the revision is prudent, well-researched, honest in its discovery, thoroughly reviewed, and properly documented for publication. Why? Enter Britain's rudest man, and one of my favorite historians, Dr. David Starkey.
Why do we bother studying history at all? Jake, where are you?
To see what happened in the past?
Yeah, why does that matter?
Huh?
Why does what happened in the past matter?
Because it has an effect on our life today.
Yes, it does. I mean, how old are you?
16.
Right. You have lived for 16 years. What percentage is that of the last 1,000 years? 1.6, right. In other words, what is your experience against all those earlier human generations? Do you really want your life to be without purpose? What is your ambition?
In other words, historical figures and events can teach us how best to navigate our own experiences by studying their successes, but maybe more importantly, their failures. But Nicole Hannah-Jones' project does none of this. It's subjective, poorly researched to the point of academic malpractice, grandiose in its conclusions, and lacked any rigorous level of peer review. Now, it's true, she's not an historian, she's a journalist, but some of the leading scholars of the time period critiqued her essay, and even the lead historian who helped Nicole Hannah-Jones fact-check the essay, an historian who was trying to shield her from attacks, said that Nicole Hannah-Jones made avoidable mistakes. Additionally, Gordon Wood and James McPherson, two of the leading historians of American history, decided that they would weigh in. They were interviewed by the World Socialist website, which published an article, and I'll leave a link in the description to that article, but they also published a video on YouTube of their interview with Gordon Wood, and here's what he had to say about the project.
What was your initial reaction to reading Project 1619?
Well, I got my Sunday paper a few months ago and was surprised to see this 1619 project in the Sunday magazine of the New York Times. I had no awareness that it was being done, and I was surprised, as many other people were, by the scope of this thing, especially since it's going to become the basis for high school education and has the authority of the New York Times behind it, and yet could be so wrong in so many ways. I don't think people realize just what a cruel and brutal world existed, not just for slaves, but for lots of people who were considered the mean sort or the lowly. And what it means to say that all men are created equal. I mean, I think the important point to make about slavery is that it had existed for thousands of years without substantial criticism. Slavery existed in Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia, and of course in Latin America and North America. But it's the revolution that makes it a problem for the world. And the first real anti-slave movement takes place in North America. So this is what's missed by these essays in the 1619 project.
But Hannah-Jones didn't take kindly to criticism of her work, so she took to Twitter. And I'm going to leave a link in the description to some Twitter threads between Hannah-Jones and some of her critics, and I strongly encourage viewers to read through those, because it seems that her real agenda is some kind of race war. The link was an advanced search which searches her handle and the phrase 1619. In my opinion, her commentary about black Americans being the only thing making America exceptional or unique or virtuous is really troubling, because it smacks of the same sort of ethno-nationalism that the alt-right harp on about regarding white European ancestry making America actually special. And in my opinion, it's nothing more than racialized, anti-American propaganda. But let me know what you think. I'm going to leave a bibliography to 5 books. 4 of them are comprehensive American histories, and one of them is a very, very long book on the history of slavery. I'm sure you can find these works at very reasonable rates on Amazon. Additionally, I'll leave several links to some very good commentaries and articles critiquing the project that I've watched and read. Feel free to leave links to other videos in the comments section and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.
We have been the perfecters of this democracy.